Welcome to Casa de Confidence, a podcast for you. You'll hear some incredible women
and some awesome, cool dudes
going confidently in the direction of their dreams and living in the purpose of their heart.
You're our host,
Julie DeLucca-Collins, and you are our sidekick. Hashtag handsome hot husband.
That again.
And the producer of the show.
That I am.
I am an author, speaker, coach, dreamer, and most of all,
we help people go in the direction of their dreams
and support them on their purpose. So pull up a chair,
grab a drink,
and make yourself at home because our casa
is your casa. Welcome back to another week of Casa de Confidence. This week we have Dr. Noor Ali. So, Julie, what's up with our guest this week?
You know, I have to tell you that I love that she loves, Dr. Noor Ali loves fabulous shoes. And Harry Potter, by the way.
Wow.
So
all right.
That's one of the things that, and by the way, our conversation was, I could talk to her forever. She's got such an interesting background, but here, before we jump into her specific, gig, because she is a doctor, she's a medical doctor, but she's doing something very interesting with her career path. I want to throw a stat at you. Okay. Number one, did you know that more than, okay, hold on. Let me start from the beginning because I want to make sure that I have my numbers correct.
All right.
There was a survey that said that out of 1,400 adults, that most of them, 33% of them, stay in a job that they don't like, but they stay because of their health insurance. Did you know?
That makes sense.
And furthermore, the survey, and this is a very small sample size, people, but still, I think it's very indicative of the larger population. Furthermore, 26% of those surveyed said that 26% of Americans would start their own company if health insurance wasn't a factor. So I know from personal experience that I'm incredibly lucky that you have your full-time gig that provides us with health insurance.
And I like it.
And we have really good health insurance, by the way.
Yeah.
And we're so grateful. I'm incredibly grateful for that because I got to go back to my favorite dentist because we have great insurance and we're very fortunate. But a lot of people, and again, you love your job, so you're not necessarily looking to leave your job.
Right.
However, there's a lot of people who have dreams and a lot of people who dream of doing something different, but they don't because obviously they either need the health insurance for their kids or for themselves or for their family or the fear of something that may come about, right?
Right.
That requires them to have insurance. And I think that this is so common. And we live in a place now that obviously, you know, there's a lot of information that can help you navigate health insurance, but a lot of people don't know how.
Well, that's the thing. Like, what did our guest last week, Ashley Ford, what was the thing that she said? Some people give up.
They give up the freedom and flexibility of being an entrepreneur for the certainty that, you know, a paycheck gives them.
It was stability.
Yeah.
It was a particular
people
phrase.
Need to go back to listen to that
listen
episode.
to last week.
All what people need to do.
Our intro, we talk about it, but yeah. And I think what Dr. Noor Ali is trying to do here is guide people through what they have for choices.
She is a medical doctor turned health insurance expert because she has a knack for taking really tough, dry, and convoluted concepts of making presentable, digestible, and honestly easy and fun to learn for people, right?
Cool.
So I really love that she is doing this. And she goes into a little bit of how she got started and how did she go from being a doctor to all of a sudden working with individuals and helping them navigate the health industry, because all of us need an expert that can do that. Hey, I don't know if I talked about this on the podcast, Ann.
This podcast?
Yes, this podcast. I don't know if I talked about it here, but I came up with a great analogy. Okay,
all right.
You ready for this?
Do it.
You know how yesterday we went for an adventure again? We did a little adventure. And it was a fantastic lunch adventure, but not so much like in the earth. I mean, it was okay. We were going to this thing that ended up not being what I anticipated it was.
Right.
But I didn't know where I was going. And I had the navigation rolling, but you knew a little bit of where you were.
Right.
So, and at times, we can navigate. We cannot turn on our GPS to get us there, but it's so much better to go somewhere when the person that you're with is actually the person that can help you navigate there.
Oh my God, I'm seeing where you're going with this analogy.
Does that make sense? Like as a coach, right? I'm helping individuals. You can go and Google. You can say, hey, Google, how do I build a business? Or how do I create tiny habits? Or how do I overcome my saboteurs? However, right? You can have the experience and know-how of someone that has gone where you want to be.
You can do the research. You can Google until your brains can't Google anymore. And looking at all the information, having things provided by your research or a computer. But that knowledge that comes from a person who's experienced those things can become such a much more complex and beautiful partnership. And bring you both into the future and into where you want to be. And there's nothing better than that human touch of experience.
Yeah, for sure.
And sharing of not only knowledge but feelings
and experience. And and I think back to what a crucial part it is. I think back to growing up. My mom was a single mom. And there was a period in her life in which, our life, because I lived it, she was working for several different companies, but she was working as a temp. So as a temp, she was a permanent temp, which meant she didn't have insurance. So a good part of my high school career, that's one of the reasons I didn't try out for cheerleading in 9th grade and 10th grade. No, I wasn't in 9th grade. I was, but not in 10th grade. So 10th and 11th, I didn't try out because you needed to have medical clearance and we did not go to the pediatrician. Okay. Not because obviously at that time, my sister got sick and she had to have surgery and she was, and by the way, my sister got sick, not because of not getting the health care, but because my sister had, I don't even know what kind of thing she had, but it was like a pre-existing condition that even if she had been getting medical care, she wouldn't have found out. And the reality is that my mom ended up like going into incredible debt because of the medical bills that we incurred.
Right.
And did you know that things haven't necessarily changed? Because the stat from 2021 says that 58% of Americans are in debt because of medical bills. Which it's I
think medical is the biggest thing, especially a lot of insurances have the high deductible plans now.
For sure.
And that's how the insurance companies remain competitive to employers. And they offer these high deductible plans, and that's a tough one.
A lot to dissect.
You gotta hit the sick lottery. Like you gotta have a big bill in the beginning of the year, then you're on the plan of free. You gotta hit that the high deductible, your whatever your out of pocket is.
Yeah.
And then you go to the doctor a whole bunch the rest of the year.
Like I did last year.
Yeah. It's just one of those things.
And by the way, I wanted to bring this interview to individuals because no matter where you are in the spectrum, whether you are a single mom or whether you're a family unit, and whatever you're doing, it's very important to find resources because perhaps it's not you who needs someone like Dr. Ali. But maybe you do know someone, and I want people to really be able to leverage. And by the way, Dr. Noor is phenomenal. I love my time with her. I learned so much about where does she come from, because she's a scholar at heart and everything she does is with love. Right. She's a licensed physician. Like I said, she has a master's in public health. She also is a digital marketing background from Yale University School of Management. So she's someone who is incredibly educated. And I think that for us, do what you do best, people, and then find the people that you can connect with and leverage their expertise to help you no matter where you're going in life. And I think that this is so important for all of us.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have a birthday coming up this weekend.
We do. It's Juliana DeLucca's birthday.
I was going to talk about the podcast, but whatever. You want to talk about me? Fine. Let's talk about me.
It's not this weekend, but it's this week.
Yes.
And the podcast birthday.
Yes. And you have to tune into Instagram because we're going to be revealing our new wonderful, or maybe you can vote on our new cover art.
New cover art.
That's
Who
right.
Knew?
We knew. We just haven't shared it.
So I haven't seen the proof of concept.
Oh my
yet.
God, Dan has seen it, but whatever.
Well, I don't know what the latest thing you ended up at is.
You are having an active role in this, Daniel.
So
he says, I haven't seen it, but he has.
Well, I've had some early active roles, but you've been hashing it out.
Well, who else to hash it out with and with you and the listeners? Anyhow, I'm excited to bring this interview. And by the way, people, we're almost out of April. So get your stuff together because before you know it, we're going to hit June. And you need to make sure that you're getting your consistent action to get the traction you want for your life.
Yes. So I would just like to say 3 things.
Go ahead.
Julie, happy birthday.
Yay. Happy birthday to me.
DeLucca-Collins. Happy birthday.
It's not DeLucca-Collins.
Wait a minute. DeLucca-Confidence. Happy birthday.
Yay.
And I hope you all love this interview between Julie and Dr. Noor Ali.
Hi, everybody. I have a special guest, as always, for you today. I am excited to be able to bring this wonderful conversation. Dr. Noor is a Bangladeshi American medical doctor turned health insurance expert from New York City. She currently runs her own health insurance consulting practice out of Tampa, Florida, offering healthcare insurance strategy to entrepreneurs all over the nation. And I am a big proponent of this because navigating the world of insurance is not easy. And growing up, I know that my mom, as a single mom, struggled. And for many times, her companies didn't offer health insurance. And that was one of the reasons that maybe we didn't get to the hospital growing up as much. So we live in a world in which I don't want people to not care for themselves. We have to really put ourselves first, but navigating sometimes the insurance world is difficult. So we need to leverage the expertise of others. Dr. Noor, thank you so much for being here. I am thrilled to have you at Casa de Confidence.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you. The pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much for having me as a guest on your show.
Well, you are doing some incredible work, but before we jump into that, I alluded to the fact that you are a medical doctor and now you're doing not necessarily something directly applied to what you went to school for a lot of times. Take us through, what is your background? What is your story? How did you get here? Tell us more about you from the beginning.
Okay, well, I love sharing this story because, I get asked that question a lot. So actually, Julie, my story starts when I'm 5 years old and I'm sitting on my grandfather's lap. We're reading our favorite book together, and you'll never guess, but it's Gray's Anatomy, the #1 anatomy textbook for medical students worldwide. And I've got hearts in my eyes as I look up at my dada. And he looks down at me and he says, "You're going to be a doctor someday, aren't you?" "Yes, dada. Yes, I am." So starting from that point on, my entire life is accelerated on this trajectory towards medicine. So in middle
Mm.
school, I'm taking high school courses. In high school, I'm taking advanced college courses. So all of a sudden, I'm 18 years old, living in the Big Apple in New York City, and I'm about to start my college career when, I get this phone call. "Hello, Dada's died."
Oh,
"What?"
I'm so sorry.
And that puts my father, and he looks at all of us and says, "We're going back to Bangladesh now." So all
Mm.
of a sudden, I am living in Bangladesh, standing in my medical school college campus in 118 degrees sweltering heat, this time clutching my very own Grey's Anatomy. And I'm looking around confused, like, where am I? What is this? Dada, where
Mm.
are you? I really struggled during that period of my life because I couldn't communicate with my peers. I was too skinny. I couldn't eat the food there. But one thing I was excelling at was my education.
Mm.
I was doing really, really well. I was finally studying what I was always meant to study. One of my professors looks at me and says, "You are really good at this. You just timed 16 minutes and 50 seconds for this C-section. No one has ever done that before."
Wow.
Yes, and this is when I was 22, 23 years old. So I
Okay,
graduated
wait a
medical
minute. I
school.
have to
Yeah.
stop you. They
Yeah.
time you to see how long it takes to do a C-section?
Well, they don't time you as a
Oh,
matter of,
okay. Okay.
protocol, but,
Right.
we do have a start time of surgery and an end time of surgery.
And this was
So,
with an
and with
actual
log.
patient?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's
when we
amazing.
log those numbers, it's interesting. Like, well, wait a minute, that time looks really, really short, and that was a record for myself at that time at my hospital where I was practicing.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
incredible. Well,
yeah.
what a nod to your knack in natural inclination and dream to pursue this.
Yes, I was doing really well, and it felt like I was where I was meant to be. This is always
Mhm.
what I wanted. Well, my career goes by, and I graduate, and I'm at the final year of medical school, and love is the last thing on my mind. But a man that I met 6 years ago finds me halfway across the world, and he wants to get back into my life. And for me, the answer is a hard no, because I'm like, this is my final year of medical school. I'm super, dedicated and committed. I'm sorry, but I don't have time for this. But
Wow.
he flies to Bangladesh to seize me anyway, and we get together in a room. And the way it happens is, he asked my father for my hand, and my father says that, "Well, you guys have 15 minutes to decide whether you want to get married or not. I'm not going to allow you to date my daughter because she's in a very critical time of her life. Either you decide to commit to her, or, I'm sorry, but I can't allow this relationship to just continue without an end."
Oh my
And
gosh.
I know. That was on like a Wednesday night, and by Friday we were married. So
What
that
I'm
happened,
speechless because you
you
hear
know,
about this and it sounds like this is a Netflix movie.
I know, right? Yeah, that
But this
happened
is your
really, really
life.
quick. That's my life. I know it happened
Wow.
so quickly, but I've been married 10 years now. So at that time, thank you so
Congratulations.
much. We have a son, we have a 2-year-old son. So during that time, it was like this whirlwind of emotion, and we didn't know what was happening, but
Mhm.
it all worked out for the best. So
Incredible.
2 years fly by. I married this man who found me halfway across the world, and it's time for me to move back to the United
Mhm.
States to be with him. I'm finished with my training. Now, the way it works for foreign doctors like myself, Julie, we do not have to go through medical school again, but there's a series of licensing exams that we have to pass. So for me to practice surgery and medicine in the States, I have to pass a series of licensing exams. Now, the first of those exams, step one, tests on basic sciences, which I studied maybe 7, 8 years ago at the time.
Mhm.
So there was a big disconnect with me being, a general surgeon practicing
Right.
surgery and the content of that first exam, and I really struggled with it. So
Wow.
for 2 years, I studied, and I didn't pass. I failed, and I missed one question, and I dropped the ball entirely. And that was a really dark period of my life where I lost all sense of professional identity because all I had known was medicine. I didn't even have an undergraduate degree. So on paper, I look very underqualified, like a high school graduate, but in my professional practical
Right.
life, I'm, a practicing surgeon, and I have tremendous clinical experience. So that
Wow.
was so difficult for me to reconcile. And, no one was hiring me for a job. I was just, falling into this deep, dark pit. And I really
Wow.
needed a win in my life. So that's when, we had decided I have to make a change. Something has to give, something has to
Mhm.
change. So we moved down from New York City to Florida, and health insurance was the only opportunity that I was given at the time. And I just grabbed it. I needed a win. I needed
Mhm.
something to make happen. And for me, it was a very foreign concept. As a foreign doctor in my country where I studied and trained, there is no health insurance system. So the insurance system itself was new to me.
Right.
And I saw the other side. As a patient, I saw the other side. As a practicing physician, I saw the other side.
Mhm.
So there was
Mhm.
a big learning curve for me when I first got into this industry. So I understand what it's like to feel like it's a scam, to feel like you
Yeah.
don't understand it, to feel like, well, what are my options and what is this and what is this terminology? So I get all of that.
Mhm.
But I really embraced it, and it took me a little while to learn. But now I'm proud to call myself an expert. In the past 2, 3 years, I've really worked on developing my personal brand and stepping into my power.
I
So
love
things
it.
are things are going well now, and that's how I got to where I am.
This is such an incredible story, and there's so many different things that I want to unpack. Number one, I just feel that is incredible how you, from a very young age, had a dream. You knew what your purpose was going to be, and for many of us, we tend to also have a dream in our heart, have a very narrow path that we walk because we want to achieve that dream. And somehow, life happens like it did with losing your grandfather, moving to Bangladesh, and then navigating and reconnecting to the dream, going through school, and now, being faced with getting married and changing your life again and uprooting yourself. You've stayed the course. What would you say in those dark times that you mentioned? Because you alluded to them being dark. What would you say is the thing that let you get to the other side of the tunnel and find the light?
The light is always inside. And I would say what I did
Mm,
was I never let the light inside go out completely. There was a time where it diminished so much, Julie, that I thought it was going to be extinguished forever. And it just
mm.
makes me emotional thinking about those dark times. But I never stopped believing in the light inside me.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I think that many people, and perhaps our listeners, began with a dream, had a purpose, or were going toward that life that they envisioned themselves having, and they got knocked down. And perhaps they don't see that light inside themselves. What do you think is a good way for us to reconnect to the vision or even to the light? And what helped you really stay true to that light and find it, even in the darkest of times?
Well, there was a time where I thought that, I thought the light was something else when it wasn't. And I think the lesson I learned from that is the light is always there and it can change form in your mind, but these are two separate things. What I thought was my path, I thought I'd always be, a clinician. I was always so good at it. Everyone thought I
Mhm.
was going to be, practicing medicine for the rest of my life. Even I did. Even like well into my career in health insurance, I thought I was going to go back to a clinical career. So in my mind, my path was a certain way. But
Mhm.
the light inside your heart has nothing to do with the story you have in your mind. So it's
Mhm.
really a matter of just, holding on to yourself, whatever that self looks like at the time. And that self might evolve, that
Mhm.
path might change, you might get a hurdle, but don't hold on so tightly to the story that's in your head. Focus instead on just the core, the essence, the spirit of who you are, and just hold on to that, knowing that it's okay if that path changes. It's okay if, your story changes and you evolve and change as a human being.
This is one of the things that I see that you have in common with many of the women who are living in their purpose, who are living the life they imagined, even if it's different from the original dream, that they understand that the essence hasn't changed. It's just what you're doing that may be a little different. I think that for me, I knew that I always wanted to help others. I began my career as a teacher, and to some extent, I'm still a teacher, working with clients and helping them. and serving them to really be able to get to the place where they want. So it's a matter of being open, that sometimes, the dream may look a little differently, but it's still the dream.
Yep. Yeah.
You're living in Florida, you are exploring this brand new arena, which, like I said before, as I introduced you, is super needed to be able to have someone that can help us navigate. So you are what people call a healthcare concierge. Tell me a little bit about entering the insurance world, and how did you become, again, you have wonderful credentials. You have a master's in public health. You also have done some digital marketing from Yale in School of Management, but you're navigating a lot of different things. Tell me more about what you do and why is it important to do this type of work?
Yes, thank you. So, what I do now, Julie, is I work with individuals, families, business owners all over the country, and I really help them figure out what is their best bet for health insurance at that time. So, starting from when you're maybe considering leaving your corporate job, want to go into full-time entrepreneurship, all the way to running a successful business and hiring team members and having maybe remote
Mhm.
workers all over the states. I work in that entire spectrum, and I
Mhm.
analyze and I evaluate, okay, where are you? What is the best route or avenue to go to start your research for health insurance? So in the health insurance world, there's two markets to shop in. There's the public healthcare market and the private healthcare market, and they're two completely different animals. So, starting from that assessment and qualification of what's your income level, your health needs, your healthcare needs, what is important to you, decides where do we start our research. And then when we
Mhm.
go down these paths in these worlds, we factor in other factors to research and shop. So that's really what I do, is kind of help navigate that world, where to start and where to end. If we end up being a good fit to work together, I then do a policy review, onboarding process, and then you have my concierge services for the life of your policy. So that's where the concierge service comes in. I not only help you, start the research, navigate, and help you pick a
Mhm.
plan. I also help service the plan for the life of the policy, which is, I think, one thing that makes me different, in addition to, of course, all of my credentials and
Right.
qualifications, which make me really desirable. Like, oh, yeah, I definitely want her to help me figure out my health insurance. She's got all these medical credentials and all
I
of this
know.
experience. I would much rather work with her than any other person in the industry. And I boast that a lot, and I'm not afraid to boast it, because I feel like all of my experience now, even though it would seem unlikely that, well, you don't need to go to medical school to sell health insurance. You absolutely don't.
Mhm.
But because I do, I have, it helps me do the medical evaluation analysis pretty much instantly, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that this is one of the parts where most people, I would imagine, pick health insurance, sadly, right? And this is a sad state of affairs in this country. And, I don't want to get political, but it is true. We pick health insurance based on cost, not necessarily on what we need. And yes, the majority of our choices, my personal choices with my husband, when we look at the health insurance plans, we definitely look at cost, because sometimes, do we want to pay a $20,000 deductible? Or, what type of care do we want? I know that for me, one of the things that has been priority is always being able to see the doctors that I like. I am what a lot of people refer to as an advocate for my own patient health. I have an autoimmune, so I know I just don't want to go to anybody. I don't want, no offense to other people out there, but I want a and I want to also not only highly qualified, but I want someone who is going to be my partner in health, someone who is going to listen to my concerns, be open to not just saying, okay, you need this pill and, call it a day. So that a relationship is important to me. So that's a little bit of what contributes to choosing our plan. But for Americans who are listening, individuals who are listening, and they're going to be choosing a plan based on money, right? What are things that they should be looking for?
Yes, great question. And I'm so glad that you shared a little bit, Julie, about what is important to you and what your process has been like when you have chosen health plans in the past. And my point is exactly that this is such a unique and individual choice And that's why I encourage everyone to just start out with a 15-minute consultation with me, because that's the first thing I'm going to ask you. What is important to you? So, Julie, you mentioned that it's important to you to have access to a high quality provider who's going to be your partner in healthcare, and involved in the decision making process, and also a premium that feels comfortable to you. So when I hear that, I'm thinking, okay, Julie's going to need a PPO plan where she can see a high quality doctor when she wants to. Julie's going to need to balance that premium for deductible where she feels comfortable with those monthly payments and doesn't feel angry when she's making a payment every month. So I listen to that and I draw out what's important and I connect it to, what you're really looking for. So these conversations are really important because someone else might be like, you know what, I'm willing to pay as a highest premium as possible. I'm having a baby this year and I need the best maternity coverage, which is wildly different from your needs right now, right?
Yeah.
So starting out with that needs assessment is super, super critical to building and finding and sourcing a plan that you love. Now, you asked about premium. Americans out there, they shop on cost, and that's absolutely true. There's no way I can recommend any plan to you that it could be the most amazing plan in the world, cover you head to toe, but if it's not affordable to you, that's just not going to make sense. That's just not going to work. So the price is the number one most important factor, and that is what happens when we do the initial decision. Are we going to shop on the public market or the private market? And the way we decipher candidates for that is if your income is below 50,000 as an individual's household size of one, we're going to probably shop in the public market because now you are eligible to get a subsidy or a tax credit from the government for that income bracket. Anyone making above 50,000, we're probably going to switch to the private market because now you're not getting any government assistance for those premiums. They're going to be high deductible. You're going to pay the full premium price. The networks are not going to be PPO. So that's kind of my primary deciding factor. 50K and below, public market, 50K and above, private market.
Amazing. So that's a really good way of knowing that. The other question, I know that this happened to us as well.
Yes.
So my husband's company went through a merger at the beginning of 2020, and two big Fortune 50, not Fortune 500, Fortune 50s merged together, and our insurance changed, which is great. I'm not complaining. However, the one thing that we did not notice is because we just kind of missed the enrollment period. And I did not have an opportunity to go make sure all of our providers were there. So one of our providers was not listed in there. And boy, was that like a hassle because, the reason we found out is we get a bill. And I'm like, why are we getting a bill from, it's our dentist, right?
Yeah.
Why are we getting a bill from the dentist? And I call the dentist and like, well, you're not in our insurance anymore. Your plan changed. I'm like, what? This is unacceptable because first of all, let me tell you, I love my dentist. He's fantastic. So then I went through the process of trying to find somebody new that, of course, met my criteria, which my husband says is a little high maintenance. But I will tell you, when I finally chose somebody, and by the way, I went a week before we went into lockdown. And it was an okay visit, no hate there. And then I went in 6 months later for my regular checkup. Again, my 6th month after my first visit. So this is September of 2020. And I had what I would say was almost a traumatic experience. And I am not using that lightly because the hygienist, I will tell you, I had a week worth of headache in the way it was terrible. Anyway, I'm not even going to go into that, but, and I was afraid to, and I'm like, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to have to go pay out of pocket to go back to my regular dentist. Locally for me, we were able to switch back and but when people miss their enrollment, is there a recourse? Is there a way to, kind of change when you've missed these deadlines? Because how do we keep track of that? I don't understand. There's so much in there that it's like, help me navigate this and help the listeners navigate this. So you don't end up going to someone that's going to give you like really like, oh, my teeth hurt thinking about this experience.
Oh gosh, I'm sorry, Julie. That really does sound like an awful traumatic experience. I'm sorry you had to go through that, but here's some lessons that I can pull from this and share with listeners.
Mhm.
So you're in actually a unique situation, which I want to address. Your husband, fortunately, works for a very large corporation. When you work for these huge corporations, you actually have amazing benefits that no one, nothing else out there can beat. Your
Mhm.
employer is subsidizing a portion of that. You have access to higher quality benefits because the group, the company is so large, insurance companies are able to subsidize that, and then your
Right.
employer additionally pays a portion of that. So we can't beat that ever.
Mhm.
So if you're in a situation like yourself, you there's no other way but you got to pay attention to those enrollment periods because
Mhm.
you're getting access to such high quality plans at such a subsidized low cost. You
Mhm.
have to abide by their rules,
Okay.
and they have strict enrollment periods. You got to stick to it.
Okay.
So to zoom out a little bit, an enrollment period in general is wherever you are getting your health insurance plan, they have their own enrollment period. So if it's with an employer, it's whatever they dictate. If
Mhm.
it's with the public ACA marketplace, that's usually November and December every year. If it's on the private side, it just depends on the company you're dealing with. So
Gotcha.
be mindful of that. There's really no way around it because you're at the mercy of where you're getting your plans. So if
Mhm.
you're like, well, I missed it and I want something else, now you got to go out on your own and shop for it, which is one, not convenient for you and definitely not cost effective for you. So if
Right.
you're going to go with the employer sponsored plan, you got to pay attention and stick to their rules, which is their enrollment period. So
Mhm.
sorry, Julie, but you're out of luck there.
I'm out of luck. Okay.
You're out of
What
luck.
about for freelancers?
Yes.
And that's another, because a lot of the listeners are freelancers, they're creatives, they have their own businesses. Tell me more about that.
Yes. So if you're doing a health insurance on your own, tip number one is going to be to work with an advisor like myself, who's very on top of these, enrollment periods. So you don't have to be. So definitely work with someone. But if you're navigating on your own, on the public market side, an open enrollment is typically November and December of every year.
Mhm.
Some states they extend to January 15th. If you miss that period, the only other time that you can sign up for a public market plan is if you qualify for a special enrollment period.
Gotcha.
So that means if you lose your coverage for some reason, you move to a different location, you get married or you get divorced, you buy a house. Those are
Mhm.
some qualifiers where you can purchase insurance outside of the enrollment periods, but be very careful because they do have 30 to 60-day windows. Now, on the private market side, it again depends on the company that you're working with. Some
Right.
might not even have enrollment periods. Some might be open all year round. So it really depends on where
Mhm.
you are getting your insurance policy.
Yeah, so this is amazing information. One of the other things too that I see a lot is, especially with women who are head of households for themselves, and they have dependents, and for them, they're maybe doing a side hustle, and they've been really crushing it, and they're at that cusp. They're at the cusp of maybe leaving their 9 to 5 to do their side hustle full time, which is exciting. But one of the biggest things that tends to hold people back is insurance, the health services, because they're responsible for their families. So, how do people can navigate that if you're ready to quit, if you're ready to start your own dream business or grow what you already have, but you need insurance or your family needs insurance? How do you navigate that?
Yes, thank you, Julie. That is the number one most common conversation I have pretty much every single day. I talk to these people all day, every day when they're just at that cusp and,
Hmm.
making the decision. You're absolutely right that health insurance is the number one thing that holds them back. The answer, I mean, my response is, first of all, don't worry. There's a world outside of what you know where you can get health insurance for yourself and your family.
Hmm.
Whether that's a public or private market is, up to our discussions and up to us to decide. But the bottom line is you don't have to have a job for health insurance. You can purchase
Ooh,
it on your own. And you
so
can either
good.
go public or you can go the private. Work with a health insurance advisor like myself to navigate that world and find those options. I think the best advice I can give there is don't try to do it on your own because most people who are in that position, they're so used to having their
Hmm.
employer offer insurance and having it deducted from their paychecks. A lot of the conversations I have when I ask them, well, how much are you paying now? What do you have right now? They have no
They'll have
idea
no
because
idea.
it's
Yeah.
exactly. And if that's not an indicator, if you have no idea what you have right now, how can you even have any confidence on figuring it out this whole world by yourself when you're just not accustomed to it? So the best advice I have there is to work with a health insurance advisor like myself, and just know that you can totally do this, and there's health coverage options outside of your employer plan.
This is really great information for us, because I think that a lot of times, in what would you say is one of the things that has been a benefit for people, in addition to, understanding and getting a plan that fits their needs as they're leaving their 9 to 5 for their freelancing career, right? What are the other benefits that they get from being able to navigate this murky waters with someone like you by their side? Because I would imagine that you see a lot of really great stories.
Oh yeah, totally. And I mean, I feel so lucky, privileged to have these conversations every day with these powerful people and women. I've decided to create a whole new brand, which I'd love to talk about. But
Yeah.
I would say the benefit is really just confidence and assurance that you have
Mhm.
someone who knows this a lot better than you on your side, advocating for you. Like you mentioned, Julie, you're a self advocate, which is amazing because you have a strong idea of healthcare, maybe, but
Right.
not everybody does. And having someone like myself on your side to fight claims with you, to do all the work on your
Mm.
behalf, and to tell you this is the best thing to do at this time. And whenever you have a life situation, to ask me, hey, Noor, what should I do? I think it's great to just give you confidence and assurance that just like you have an accountant, you have a doctor, you have a
Mhm.
health insurance advisor helping you with these big life decisions.
I think that this is one of the things that I always tell people. We need to, and by the way, if you are an entrepreneur, you know that I'm a big advocate for do what you do best and delegate the rest. Because what ends up happening, if you think yourself as having a battery, right? And there's only a certain amount of charge, right? My recharge is going to be my time off, when I sleep, when I'm having some intentional margins, like our friend of the show, Katie Jeffcoat, says. But the reality is that when we're dealing with like figuring out what health insurance and all of that, I tend to think that it really drains you. So it is time well spent for you, for your family, because it's something that takes takes it off your plate, and then you begin to see that it's not as challenging. Now, we are living in a world in which healthcare has changed a lot, I think, in the past few years, especially since the pandemic. What are things that have evolved and changed, that we need to look at when it comes to our health insurance as related to the pandemic?
Yes, great question, Julie. I would say the biggest kind of change that impacts patients after the pandemic is the advent of virtual care. What has happened is, we shifted from in-person care to more virtual care, and that's been really good on many different
Mm,
levels. Patients have a lot more convenience on getting minor urgent care things taken care of at home. Pharmacies are a lot more efficient and adept at filling virtual care prescriptions and getting them out faster. It's a lot more cost effective. It's billed at a lower rate. It costs you less out of pocket. So I would say that's the biggest change we've seen.
mhm.
But if you focus now, like currently in this economy and market of inflation, we see rising costs of healthcare, which has been a trend from, of course, the past decade, not just from the pandemic. And that hasn't slowed down. But again,
Mhm.
all the more reason to take advantage of virtual care benefits from your plan. And if it doesn't offer it, if your plan doesn't have virtual care benefits built in, there's a lot of very, very affordable supplemental options where you can tack it on to what you have right now and further reduce your healthcare costs.
Yeah, I think that, that it's so, it's one of these things that we never anticipated, but I think that I'm happy to hear that there's some good things that have come off of everything that we've really been sort of like dealing with, honestly. Um, I know that you created this new program. Why? Tell me more.
I think like a woman is this new, it's an offshoot of my current company. It's a brand that I developed because every single day, Julie, and I know that you can relate to this, I talk to these powerful women who are building their empires. Like you said, their side hustles are now growing to be bigger than their main 9 to 5s. Their mothers who are trying to navigate the jump. Their leaders who care about their health care more than their own health care. They want their team members and employees to be taken care of. And it's so inspiring and motivating to advise these female entrepreneurs and leaders with healthcare decisions. And I thought to myself that what if I were to kind of bring them together and really amplify their voices, their powers? And that's when I thought about, building a platform to do just that. So Think Like a Woman brings together really my network, my clientele, the network that I've built over the past 5 years over the course of my business. And I amplify the aspirations and ambitions of these female entrepreneurs who are already so, so powerful. So the core offering for this brand is this powerhouse brunch that I'm hosting. The first one is going to be in New York City. So it's this 3 to 4 hour event where I bring together, it's invite only, super duper curated, a round table full of 15 powerful women. And I use the power of my network to elevate their net worth and take them to the next financial milestone.
Oh my gosh, I need an invitation. We need to talk offline. I will, New York City is my stomping grounds.
Oh, Julie, yes, let's do it. Let's talk about it. Tell me more about why this excites you. And
yeah. Well, I think that this is exactly the type of community that I like to create.
Yes.
And one of the things that I love that African proverb where, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think that as women, the more that we really, realize that it's not about, competing with her and look at her and poor me, I didn't get that, because we get into that comparisonitis, but it's not about competition. It's about collaboration, because even if we are in the same lane, and by the way, I have some incredible colleagues and collaborators who are business coaches. And guess what? I love them. And I am happy to always say, hey, you know what? I know that I can help you, but my friend, Arliss, she's the right fit for you, right? Why? Because the more that we can collaborate, the more that we can help people and move ahead. And by the way, I think that when we have networks, there might be someone in my network that you need, or vice versa. And for that reason, it is really important to create these collaborative communities in which we do the work in supporting each other, because then we don't feel alone. We don't feel like we're trying to figure it out on our own. And most of all, we can then really watch each other thrive in making that difference in the world. And I think that that's the beauty of what you're trying to create. So I love this. This is phenomenal. Yeah. I can't wait.
Thank you, Julie. Yeah.
Now you are, so it's funny because I don't think that you ever mentioned this, but I see him in the background. And then when I went to your website, I was confirmed that you are a Harry Potter fan. Tell me more. How did this start that you're a Harry Potter fan?
Yes, I love.
I think it's called Potterheads. Is that it?
Potterheads, yes.
My sister's a Potterhead, and when Harry Potter, in the 2000s and whatever came out, she used to go to the Harry Potter conferences. She never dressed up, but she used to love them. So
yes, that is wild, and I love that when people recognize the shelf behind me, it's an instant connection that you know what this is, and
I know what it is. Yeah,
well, thank you for pointing out. I'm totally an OG Potterhead. I was the one on the line. I think before the 6th book came out, waiting outside before the drop outside of Barnes and Nobles in New York City. I think I waited until 7 a.m.
The one in Columbus Circle.
In Columbus Circle.
I used to live there. I actually went, and that's where I got the book too for my sister, because I knew she wasn't going to sit in line. We might have been in line together.
We might have been in line together. Who knows? And I remember going to work the next day. I was a teenager at the time. I was working at Cold Stone Creamery making ice cream. And reading pages.
Was it the one in 72nd? Don't tell me it was the one on 72nd.
No, it was. I lived in Queens, so it was.
Oh, you live in Queens, okay?
Yeah, Steinway and Broadway.
All right, I lived in Columbus in 72nd, so that was a Cold Stone right down the street from us.
Well, right by that one, but we're talking about the same Barnes and Nobles where we bought
we are definitely. Yeah, I mean that was. I used to go to that Barnes and Noble or the movie theater. I mean, this is my old. The neighborhood has changed a little bit, but this is before there was a Trader Joe's and everything. Yes, so, but I was there.
That's so wild.
Awesome.
But
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
definitely a Potter fan. And more recently I had some family members visit and they added some few things to my shelf. So I've got this
Ooh.
beautiful journal. I've got a wand there in the back, my
I was gonna
very
say, do
first
you have a
wand.
wand?
I have a wand
That's
now. I'm so
amazing.
proud. And I've got two tubs for butterbeer, which is so fun.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's
Yeah,
so cool. Have you been,
right.
well, obviously you're in Florida, so I would imagine there's a good chance that you've been to Potter World. Yeah.
I have my husband took me for an anniversary present actually, and I
Oh,
was so happy, like the
what a
happiest 2 days
keeper.
of my life. He knows.
What a keeper. How did you meet your husband? Because I know you told the story
Mm,
of him coming to court you across the world
yes,
and, marrying you in two
yes,
days. Because
I know.
I don't think that that was his intention. He was coming to like,
Nope.
hey,
Just say hello.
let's say
Yeah.
hello, let's get together.
Let's
But how
hang
did you
out.
meet?
We actually met on the dance floor when I was 18 years old. And it sounds so
Wow.
crazy to say it now, but we were
Hmm.
actually at his older sister's wedding. We were
Okay.
family friends with the family. And,
Okay.
I was just dancing at her wedding and he checked me out just like, young people do. And he liked
Right.
it. And, we connected a little bit, but that
Hmm.
was a time where I was moving back to Bangladesh for medical school. So it was like, hi, I think you're cute, but I gotta go now and do more important life-saving things.
Now, did you keep in touch all these?
We
No?
didn't. We didn't. We reconnected years later, and that it was just like, okay, I think we're meant to,
So then
this is
when you
meant to happen.
reconnected, oh my gosh, I need to get the scoop in here.
The
So
scoop.
you reconnected and you talked online yeah,
Yes,
okay.
yeah, because he was living in the city at the time, and I was in Bangladesh, so we
Hmm.
were communicating all hours of the day and night via WhatsApp and email. So it was very much a digital, connection, even though we
Hmm.
had met in person,
Right, right,
and that
right.
went on for months, and it was to a point where we were just nonstop talking, and we just needed to see each other. So he decided to come to meet me, but that meet turned into something a lot more, thanks to my father.
Wow. So have you asked your husband? I'm sorry. I love this story. It needs to be, if we have a screenwriter, you need to talk to Dr. Noor and make this a movie. I love it. So he comes and then your dad says, you got to marry her. What did he think?
Well, this is how it went because he just flew in and he came to my house for dinner. It was a family dinner.
Hmm.
We knew each other. It's not like we didn't
Yeah.
know each other.
Right,
We
right,
were
right.
family friends from before. And he's a little jet lagged. He's a lot jet lagged. He's not used to kind of flying 30 hours.
Yeah.
And, my father says, well, what are your intentions? Like, what do you want to do? And he's like, well, I was just hoping to kind of get to know each other, maybe go for coffee and hang out a few times while I'm here for a few
Was he
weeks.
going to stay at your house or was he staying somewhere
No,
else
he
with
had a
family?
hotel. He
Okay.
had his own house and he had his own place. And my father says, "Well, that's nice, but I need a commitment from you." And my husband at the not at the time, but he said, "Well, can I have some time to think about it? I just landed. I'm a little foggy. Can I just think about this a little bit?" And my father says, "Sure, yeah, you have 15 minutes. Why don't you go talk and talk about it and think about it and let me know in 15 minutes." And
Incredible.
and those 15 minutes, everyone's like, well, what did you say? What did you talk about? And this is how a conversation between us went. I said, well, I really like you and I don't not want to marry you. I just, we need more time. And he said, well, I didn't come all the way here to not commit to you and be with you. So it was kind of like my process of exclusion. Well, we don't not want to be with each other. So I guess that we have to get married. That according to my father, that was a conclusion he deduced is, well, it's not like you don't want to be with each other. Well, then this is it.
Wow. So, I would say that this is something that, sometimes we have so many choices. It's very difficult to decide on something. But I love that, you're like, well, we don't want this, and I guess we hadn't considered that, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's amazing. And 10 years later, and a baby, 2 years old. That's incredible. What a fun little story. What did his family say when, you said, hey, we're getting married?
Yeah, I don't know. His family was not as proactive as mine. I feel like it was mainly driven by my side of the family, especially
Mm,
because we were in Bangladesh, which is kind of like our wheelhouse. For
right.
his family, they were a little out of their environment, a little out of their element.
Mhm.
So they weren't really driving the decisions at the time. It was mostly my
Right.
family, like, this is what's happening. We're taking care of all of it. Don't even worry about it.
And now, did you get married in Bangladesh?
Yes, so we got married in Bangladesh. I was still kind of finishing up school and training at the
Mhm.
time. So the first 2 years of our marriage was long distance, which was absolutely awful. It was
What?
the worst. Yeah,
Well, you
it
didn't
was.
say that part of the story. That's a
Yeah.
great part of the story. So, this is amazing because then it took a lot of commitment to really be able to continue to commit despite the distance. And your husband is in New York at the time.
Yeah, and he's worked, very demanding work and schedule for him.
Hmm.
He worked at a big four, still with the firm right now. He's
Hmm.
at Deloitte, and I'm again in a very demanding clinical career as a surgeon. And remember, we're like 12 hours apart, so it's
Yeah.
day and night. So,
Yeah.
communicating and conversations were really challenging, both having very demanding careers and
Hmm.
only being able to connect when my day ends or begins and his day begins or ends.
Hmm.
Not having that physical connection as often as we'd like because,
Right.
it's hard. So those were some of the big challenges that we had, and it was really hard.
How often did you see each other in those 2 years?
One or two times a year. So we just basically
Wow.
vacation together. We'd
Okay.
meet somewhere else in the world and have a week together and then go back to our separate lives.
Mm, what an incredible story. So I want to, definitely be sensitive of your time. I have one more question for you.
Yes.
And this definitely is something that always pops into my brain. I was very close to my grandmother. But for you, your grandfather was also a great influence. What do you think he would think of your life right now and he would say to you?
Wow, Julie, wasn't expecting that question. No one's asked me that. My grandfather was most definitely the most important influence in my life. Um, I'm wondering whether he would be disappointed that I'm not a physician, but
Mm,
I know that he would be proud of me being where I am today at this age, me fulfilling my deepest desires, not in the way that he or myself or anyone else thought, but kind of in my own way. And I think he'd be
mm.
really proud of me paving my own path, where there was no path in front of me.
I have to say that I loved your answer and thank you, but I want to reassure you that I think your grandfather, yes, he would be incredibly proud and never disappointed because here's the thing. We typically make the dreams based on what we know and what somebody else has modeled for us. And your grandfather probably never knew that this was something that had been modeled, that it was possible. But in
Right.
essence, helping others, creating wellness, giving them the care they need, everything that a physician does, you may not be doing in a clinical way, but you're doing it in a way that they can leverage all of those things. And without you, a lot of people may not be able to get the best medical, physical care as possible. So you play a very integral part to having individuals leverage medical care. So I think that he is probably smiling and you exceeded his expectations for sure, Dr. Noor.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you so much for that perspective. That really makes me my heart shine. Thank you.
Well, it's been such a pleasure to be able to speak to you, to be able to host you on the show. You're an incredible woman. You're doing some great work. Thank you for the work that you do. How do people connect with you?
Yes, you can find me more about me on my website. That's drnoorhealth.com, DrNoorHealth.com. And I'm also super duper social. You can catch me on my Instagram stories almost every day and see what I'm up to. So I really
Ooh,
invite you
I'm
to
going to do a
connect with me
story
there.
now. Hold on.
Yeah,
Let's do a story while we
let's do
do
it.
this. Okay, I should have had it open, but
That's okay.
All right, so we're going to do a story. People can't hear you, but you're just going to wave. Oh, why? Oh my gosh. This is okay. Here you go. Okay. So I'll tag you and then we're
Okay,
all set.
perfect.
I'm so excited. Well, thank you for coming to Casa de Confidence and for being a part of the show. We're so thrilled to have you here. And it is an honor for sure to meet someone as dynamic and incredibly influential in the world so that you can continue to make a difference in the lives of others. So Dr. Noor, don't forget, go confidently in the direction of your dreams.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Julie. Love this.
Thanks for listening to Casa de Confidence. We thank you for listening, and if you want more, go to casadeconfidencepod.com. Check Julie out on her socials as Julie DeLucca-Collins. And you can also check out her website at goconfidentlycoaching.com. Have a great week, and don't forget, go confidently in the direction of your dreams.